Young taxi driver gives a free ride to a crying girl. Then a limousine shows up, and love found them in the most unexpected way. The rain poured relentlessly over the outskirts of Willowbrook, a small city nestled between rolling hills and dense forests. The narrow, poorly lit road glistened under the relentless downpour, puddles forming jagged mirrors that reflected the flickering yellow glow of tired street lamps. Thunder rumbled in the distance like an ominous growl, and flashes of lightning cast ghostly shadows across the slick pavement. It was the kind of night that made people hurry home, windows shut tight, curtains drawn. But Mia had no home to rush back to. She sat curled up against the guardrail, her thin dress soaked through and clinging to her skin. Mascara streaked down her cheeks, mingling with the raindrops that cascaded over her face. Her arms were wrapped tightly around her knees, as if trying to make herself smaller, less visible. Her hands trembled violently, not just from the cold but from the fear clawing at her chest. 3 figures loomed nearby, men dressed in damp hoodies and sneakers, their postures slouched but menacing. They circled her like predators sensing prey, their voices sharp and mocking. "Hey, princess," one of them sneered, leaning closer. "You waiting for someone? Or just hoping someone like me comes along?" Another chuckled. "Come on, sweetheart. It's a nasty night. Let us keep you company." Mia shook her head, barely able to choke out the words. "Please, leave me alone." "Oh, she talks," the third man jeered. "How about we all just hang out a little, huh?" That was when the headlights appeared, bright and sudden, slicing through the downpour like a blade. A yellow taxi screeched to a halt just inches away, its tires splashing water across the curb. The driver's door slammed open and Noah stepped out. Noah was tall and lean, his dark hair plastered to his forehead by the rain. From the moment he emerged, his presence was commanding, a mix of concern and something else, something dangerous to anyone who dared cross him. "Back off," he barked, stepping between Mia and the men. His voice cut through the storm like thunder. "Leave her alone." The leader smirked. "What is this? Night in a yellow chariot?" Noah didn't blink. "You've got 5 seconds." The tension spiked. One of the men looked ready to test him, but then caught the fire in Noah's eyes, the unwavering stance, the clenched fists. With muttered curses, they backed off into the shadows, disappearing into the night. When they were gone, Noah turned to Mia, his voice softening instantly. "Are you okay?" She nodded numbly, though her lips were pale and trembling. Her entire body shook now, her fingers frozen. Without hesitation, Noah helped her to her feet, one hand steady on her back, the other holding an umbrella he'd yanked from the passenger seat. He opened the car door for her, and she climbed in without protest, clutching herself tightly. The interior of the taxi was warm, a stark contrast to the icy chaos outside. She sank into the seat, silent, her gaze fixed on the blurry city lights streaming past the window. Noah slid into the driver's seat, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. "Where to?" I don't know," she murmured. "I don't have any money. I just needed to get away." Noah paused for a moment, then started the engine. "I didn't ask about your wallet. I asked where you need to go." She didn't answer right away. For a while, they drove in silence, the windshield wipers keeping rhythm with the rain. Finally, in a voice barely louder than the storm, she whispered, "Just somewhere quiet. Somewhere no one will find me tonight." Noah nodded. "I know a place." They pulled into a small park on the edge of town where trees bent in the wind and lampposts glowed dim but steady. The rain had eased into a drizzle. Noah parked beneath a sprawling oak tree and turned off the engine. He didn't look back at her or press for details. He simply handed her a pack of tissues and sat with her in the quiet. Mia took a deep breath, wiped her face, and turned to him. "Why did you stop?" He shrugged. "You looked like you needed someone too." She stared at him for a long moment before whispering, "Thank you. You're the first person tonight who didn't ask me who I was, just if I was okay." Noah met her gaze in the mirror. That's all that mattered. And in that moment, under the gray sky and flickering lamplight, something unspoken passed between them, something fragile, uncertain, but undeniably real. It had begun. The windshield wipers hummed softly as Noah navigated the rain-soaked streets, heading away from the chaos and deeper into the quieter edges of Willowbrook. In the rearview mirror, he occasionally glanced at Mia, curled in the back seat, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her mascara-streaked cheeks glistened in the dim light, and though she tried to compose herself, sobs came in broken waves. Noah didn't ask what had happened. He just drove, letting the silence cradle her as much as the warmth of the cab. His fingers tapped gently against the steering wheel, not out of impatience, but from a desire to do something, anything, that might offer comfort. "Is there somewhere safe I can take you?" he asked eventually, his voice low and steady. Mia nodded faintly. "A park, just somewhere quiet. I don't want to go home." He didn't ask why. He simply nodded, turned left, and took her to a place he often visited himself when the noise of the world became too much, a little city park tucked behind a row of closed cafes and darkened bookstores, the kind of place few people remembered after nightfall. When Noah pulled in near the entrance, he turned off the engine but left the lights on low. The rain had lightened to a gentle drizzle, and the city around them seemed hushed and half asleep. Mia sat still for a long moment, then finally broke the silence. "You didn't ask me any questions," she said softly. Noah glanced at her reflection in the rearview mirror. "Didn't seem like you needed any." Her eyes filled again, not with panic this time, but something else. Relief, maybe. She sniffled, wiped her face with the tissue he'd given her earlier, and slowly opened the door. Before stepping out, she paused, leaning forward slightly. "Thank you," she said, her voice fragile but sincere. "You're the first person tonight who didn't want something from me. You just helped. You were kind." Noah gave her a small nod. "Take care of yourself, Mia." She stepped out into the mist, her figure illuminated briefly by the soft yellow light from the taxi, before she disappeared into the shadows of the trees, and just like that, she was gone. Noah sat for a moment, staring at the space she had left behind. Then, slowly, he started the engine and pulled away. He didn't expect to see her again. He didn't even know her last name. But her presence lingered, her voice, her sadness, her thank you. Over the next few days, he found himself thinking about her more than he expected. He kept glancing at the back seat whenever he started a shift, as if expecting her to be there, curled up in silence. Something about her had settled inside him, an ache he couldn't quite explain. Then, 4 days later, it happened. Noah had just dropped off a passenger in the business district and was pulling away from the curb when a sleek black limousine rolled to a stop directly in front of his taxi. The contrast between the two vehicles was stark, his weathered cab and the polished chauffeur-driven luxury car. Noah blinked in surprise as the driver of the limo stepped out, holding a small white envelope. He approached Noah's window and handed it through the crack. "For you," the driver said. "Miss Mia requests your presence tomorrow evening, 7 p.m. 17 Evergreen Lane." Noah opened the envelope and found a simple card inside, handwritten in elegant looping script. "I'd like to thank you properly. You were there when no one else was. Mia." He stared at the card for a long moment, then looked back at the limousine. It was already pulling away, and Noah knew whatever this was, it was far from over. The next evening, just before sunset, Noah found himself pulling his taxi onto Evergreen Lane, a tree-lined street that seemed miles removed from the world he knew. At the end of the cul-de-sac stood a towering iron gate, which opened slowly as he approached, revealing a sprawling estate bathed in golden light. He parked just outside the circular driveway, feeling strangely out of place among the manicured hedges and luxury cars. Before he could even step out, a valet opened his door with a courteous nod and gestured toward the entrance. Noah adjusted his Noah hat, worn but clean, and walked toward the grand double doors, his heart pounding harder with every step. As he reached the top of the steps, the door opened, and there she was, Mia. But this Mia was not the rain-soaked girl trembling in the back seat of his cab. She stood tall and composed, wearing a cream-colored silk dress, her hair softly curled, makeup subtle and flawless. She looked like someone out of a magazine, and for a moment Noah wondered if he had made a mistake. But then she smiled. "Hi, Noah," she said softly. "I'm glad you came." He gave a hesitant nod. "You look different." She chuckled lightly. "I feel different too. Come in." He followed her through the expansive foyer, past gleaming floors and chandeliers, until they settled into a cozy dining room that, despite its size, felt surprisingly warm. A table for two had been set near the window, candles flickering gently between them. Dinner was already served: roasted vegetables, seared salmon, and fresh baked bread. Noah looked at the setup, then back at her. "I didn't expect this," he said quietly. Mia poured 2 glasses of water, then sat across from him. "I didn't expect you either," she replied, "but there's something I need to explain," Noah said, his voice low as he waited for her to continue. Mia took a deep breath, her gaze drifting to the window before returning to him. "My full name is Mia Fairchild. I'm the only daughter of Richard Fairchild, CEO of Fairchild Global. You've probably seen the name on a building or two." Noah blinked. "You're that Fairchild?" She nodded. "And the night you found me, I was supposed to be at an engagement party, an arranged one. My father was marrying me off to a business partner's son. It was all about strategy, legacy, image." Her voice tightened. "But the man was a liar, a cheater, and I refused to become part of another business deal dressed up as a wedding." Noah leaned forward slightly, his voice calm. "So you ran?" "I ran," she confirmed. "I left in the middle of the rain. No phone, no driver, just me, and a lot of mascara." Noah couldn't help but smile. "You picked a rough night for it." Mia smiled back. "And I would have kept running if you hadn't stopped. You didn't know who I was, didn't ask for anything, you just saw me." Noah looked down, uneasy under her steady gaze. "You seemed like someone who needed a place to breathe." "I did," she admitted. "You gave me that, and more." She paused, then reached under the table and placed a white envelope on the surface between them. Noah glanced at it, then shook his head gently. "If that's money, I can't take it." "It's not charity," she said quickly. "It's gratitude." "I wasn't helping you for anything in return," he replied firmly. "It just felt right." Mia studied him for a long moment, then slowly pulled the envelope back. "You really are different." Noah shrugged. "I'm just me." She smiled again, softer now. "Then let's eat, as two people. Not a Fairchild, not a taxi driver, just us." And for the first time, Noah relaxed. He picked up his fork, and as they shared stories over dinner, laughter slowly replaced formality. The distance between their two worlds seemed, if only for a while, to fade into nothing at all. In the days that followed, Mia reached out to Noah again, not with formal invitations or private drivers, but with a simple text. "Want to go for a ride? Just me. Just freedom." That was how it began. Noah became her unofficial getaway driver. Whenever the weight of her world grew too heavy, she'd call, and he'd show up in his old yellow cab, ready to take her anywhere that felt far away from expectations and pressure. There was no schedule, no destination, just two people carving out pieces of the world where they could breathe. Their first escape was to a food truck tucked behind a warehouse downtown. They ate grilled cheese sandwiches on the hood of his taxi, paper napkins blowing in the wind, laughing at how Mia couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten something off a paper plate. Another day, she convinced Noah to rent 2 bikes from a shabby shop near the riverfront. They rode through the park, laughing as Mia almost fell trying to swerve around a squirrel. She wore jeans and a baseball cap. No makeup, no filters, just her, real and free. They made up games, one of their favorites being guessing people's jobs as they passed by. "That guy definitely works in finance," Mia said, pointing to a sharply dressed man walking briskly. "No one wears suspenders unless they're trying to impress clients." "See her boots," Noah countered, nodding toward a woman reading on a bench. "Librarian, but the kind who reads crime novels after hours." The more time they spent together, the more the walls between them crumbled. Mia opened up about her childhood, the loneliness in a house full of staff, the pressure to be perfect, the years of being told who to be and how to act. Noah listened without judgment. In turn, he shared stories of growing up in a working-class neighborhood, learning to fix cars from his dad, and dreaming of seeing more than just the same streets every day. Mia laughed more. Noah smiled more. They talked about nothing and everything, often losing track of time until the city lights flickered on. Then came the night of the fireworks. It was a local festival. Neither of them had planned to attend, but they stumbled upon it during one of their spontaneous drives. Noah pulled the car into an empty field just outside the park where the fireworks were about to begin. They sat on the hood, a blanket between them, the evening air cool and buzzing with excitement. As the first bursts of color lit up the sky, Mia tilted her head back and sighed. "This is the first time in years I feel like I'm not performing." Noah glanced at her, the light from the explosions reflecting in her eyes. "Maybe this is who you really are." She turned to him and smiled. "And who are you, Noah?" He hesitated, his voice barely above a whisper. "Someone who's trying not to fall for someone way out of his league." She looked at him for a moment, her smile returning, gentle, understanding. "Don't be," she whispered. Noah turned away, his face flushed, heart pounding. He didn't say another word for the rest of the fireworks show, but Mia didn't need him to. That small, quiet moment had already said more than words ever could. The headlines hit like a tidal wave. "Heiress on the run. Billionaire's daughter caught slumming with taxi driver." From mansions to mufflers, who is the mystery man? Mia Fairchild's secret romance, love, or rebellion? The media frenzy was immediate, merciless, and everywhere. Paparazzi photos flooded newsstands, blogs, and social feeds. There was Mia in jeans and a baseball cap, her arm brushing against Noah's. Another shot showed them laughing over sandwiches at a street cart. One especially viral image captured the two sitting on the hood of his taxi, legs dangling, heads tilted slightly toward one another under the soft glow of streetlights. It was meant to be sweet. Now, under the weight of scrutiny, it felt like evidence. The photo made headlines for its intimacy, dissected by every commentator with a keyboard and an opinion. Some romanticized the story, a modern Cinderella, a heartwarming escape from privilege. Others called it reckless, irresponsible, even a publicity stunt. Noah first saw the coverage on a flickering TV screen mounted behind the counter of a gas station where he had stopped to grab coffee between shifts. There, splashed across the news, was his face, his cab, his moments with Mia. His stomach twisted, not from fear, but from knowing exactly what came next. By the time he checked his phone, it was a mess of missed calls, voicemails, and numbers he didn't recognize. His name was everywhere. Blogs guessed his background, some painted him as a hero, others as a gold digger. No one asked him anything directly, but the silence that mattered most was Mia's. Her phone, once a lifeline of quiet texts and sudden invitations, was silent now. "No, want to get coffee? No, let's drive somewhere no one knows us. No, I miss the quiet with you." What Noah didn't know was that just hours after the story broke, Mia had been summoned back to the Fairchild estate, like a soldier reporting for war. The moment she stepped through the marble foyer, the doors slammed shut behind her. Her phone was taken, her access cut. Her father paced his study like a man betrayed, not by the press, but by his own daughter. "You've humiliated this family," he spat, his voice rising, "gallivanting around the city with a taxi driver. Do you have any idea what the board is saying, what the press is doing to our name?" Mia stood her ground, chin raised, though her heart pounded like thunder. "They're saying I'm human, and maybe that's exactly what this family needs." Her father's face turned a deeper shade of red. "He's using you." "No," she snapped. "He's the only one who's never asked for anything from me." His jaw clenched. "This ends now." The next morning, Noah received a letter, hand-delivered, thick, embossed paper. An invitation? No, a summons, to Fairchild Global's downtown headquarters. He almost tossed it, almost stayed home. But something deep inside told him to go, to face this, whatever it was, head on. He arrived in his cleanest clothes, a worn but ironed shirt, jeans without holes, scuffed boots polished as best he could. Security ushered him through sleek marble floors and up to a room made entirely of glass and cold metal. The city stretched out behind it like a kingdom, and at the head of the conference table sat the king, Richard Fairchild, flanked by lawyers, unsmiling, calculated. One of them slid a manila envelope across the table. "This," the lawyer said smoothly, "is a gesture of gratitude in exchange for your discretion and your cooperation in removing yourself from Miss Fairchild's life. No press, no contact, no complications." Noah stared at the envelope. He didn't move. "And if I don't take it?" Fairchild leaned forward, his voice like ice. "Then I ensure you never drive in the city again. Licenses, permits, reputation, gone. I will make one call." Noah finally reached for the envelope, not to open it, but to push it gently back. "I didn't help your daughter because I thought it would get me anything," he said, calm but steady. "I helped her because she looked like she was drowning. I didn't know who she was. I didn't care." Fairchild's nostrils flared. "You think you can actually belong in her world?" "I don't need to belong to her world," Noah replied, standing. "I just need to be worthy of her, and you don't get to decide that." He turned toward the door, pausing just once. "You can buy silence, but you can't buy love. And you sure as hell can't kill it with a check." He walked out. The envelope remained on the table, unopened. That night, Noah climbed the stairs to the rooftop of his apartment building. The wind was sharp, the city lights blinking below, like a language only he could read. Somewhere out there, behind thick walls and locked gates, Mia was watching the same sky. He sat on the edge of the building, looking out, letting the silence settle around him like armor. He didn't know what would happen next, but he knew this much. He would wait. And when the moment came, he would be ready. But then Noah disappeared. No messages, no calls, no sign of him anywhere in the city. His taxi was no longer parked outside his usual diner. The garage he sometimes worked part-time at said he had quit. His apartment was vacated, no forwarding address. Mia tried everything. She called every cab company in town, sent emails, even drove herself through the neighborhoods he had once shown her. But it was as if the night had swallowed him whole. Her father assumed it was over. That silence meant surrender. But Mia knew better. One sleepless night, sitting in the quiet of her childhood room, surrounded by things that never felt like hers, she opened her laptop and began to write, not as heiress, not as the woman behind headlines, but as a girl. She titled the post, "The Rain and the Man Who Saved Me." In it, she told everything. The night she ran, the fear in the alley, the moment Noah stopped his cab and shielded her without asking who she was. She wrote about their late-night adventures, the sandwiches, the fireworks, and the warmth in his eyes when he looked at her like she was just a girl. Not a name, not a title. "I don't know where he is now," she wrote in the final paragraph. "But if you see him, tell him." I still remember the silence in the cab, the safety in his presence, and how he never once asked for anything in return. Tell him I miss him." She hit publish and closed the laptop. By morning, the blog post had gone viral. Thousands of comments poured in. Strangers around the world shared the story. News sites picked it up, talk shows referenced it, and people speculated everywhere. A week later, Mia received an invitation to appear on a live morning television show. The host promised to focus on the story, not the scandal. She agreed, dressing simply in a blue blouse, her hair tucked behind her ears. Under the studio lights, she recounted the story one more time for the cameras. "I didn't fall in love with a fairy tale," she said. "I found something real, and I lost it because of fear." The host leaned in. "If he were watching now, what would you say?" Mia turned to the camera, her voice barely a whisper. "I'd say, come back." Silence followed. Then a murmur rippled through the audience. A shadow moved in the far aisle. Mia turned, her breath catching. There he was, Noah, still in his simple Noah hat, hair a little longer, eyes as steady as ever. He looked unsure, slightly out of place, but very real. The audience gasped. The host stood, but Mia didn't need to. She ran, past the cameras, past the lights, straight into his arms. The room erupted in applause, but for a moment, it was just them. "I read it," Noah said quietly. Mia clung to him. "I meant every word." And just like that, the silence between them was broken, not by a grand speech, but by something far stronger, a return. The applause still echoed through the studio, swelling like a tidal wave, wave after wave of clapping and cheers that filled every inch of the room. The audience was on their feet, some with tears in their eyes, others simply smiling wide, as they watched Mia wrap her arms tightly around Noah on the stage. Cameras clicked wildly, flashes igniting like tiny fireworks. But neither of them noticed. The spotlight could have vanished completely, and they still wouldn't have cared. For Mia, the only thing that existed in that moment was the feel of Noah's heartbeat beneath her hands, steady, real, familiar in a world that often felt manufactured. Her breath caught in her throat, and when she finally pulled back just enough to look into his eyes, they were just as she remembered, gentle, grounded, and filled with something she hadn't dared hope for again. "If you leave again," she whispered, her voice shaking, "then you'd better take me with you this time." Noah gave a soft chuckle, the kind that came from deep in his chest, full of quiet relief and affection. He rested his forehead gently against hers and said, low and certain, "I won't leave. Not again." And somehow those words anchored them. They stood there, unmoving, as if the rest of the world had melted into background noise. The audience, the cameras, the lights, all faded, leaving only the two of them in a stillness that felt sacred. The host stepped forward slowly, her voice breaking through the hush with care. "Well," she said, smiling, "I think we've all just witnessed something very real." Noah and Mia turned toward the audience, still holding each other's hands as if letting go would unravel everything they'd fought to find again. Noah cleared his throat, glancing down for a second before looking up, his eyes steady. "I didn't come here for the spotlight," he said honestly. "I didn't even want to come at first. But if this moment, if this story, can remind even one person that love doesn't care about last names or bank accounts or where you came from, then I guess being here was worth it." The crowd erupted again, louder this time, not just in applause but in something more, a kind of collective exhale, as if they too had needed this reminder. After the broadcast, the internet lit up again, but this time it wasn't scandal, it was celebration. Headlines changed their tone. Mia Fairchild's second chance at real love. Taxi driver's loyalty moves millions. Love wins where money fails. Videos of the moment flooded social media. Hashtags like #NoahAndMia and #RealLove trended for days. Even celebrities chimed in, praising the couple's honesty, their courage, their refusal to play by the rules of privilege and appearance. Of course, not everyone approved. The usual tabloids tried to spin it into something cheap. Critics whispered about image control. High society circles exchanged knowing glances and muttered disapproval over champagne. But none of it mattered because, for the first time, Mia and Noah didn't have to hide, and they weren't going to. The following week, they sat down for their first public interview together. The set was modest, the tone intimate. No drama, no glamour, just two chairs, one hand resting over the other. They spoke about that rainy night, the fear, the silence in the cab, and the way Noah had never once asked who she was. "He didn't save me because he knew my name," Mia said, looking directly into the camera. "He saved me because he saw someone in pain and chose to help. That's the man I love." Noah, quieter, his hand still entwined with hers, nodded. "I never believed I was enough for her world. But she never asked me to be anything other than myself, and that's what love does. And it makes you believe you belong." From that moment on, they walked forward, not as a scandal, not as an accident of fate, but as something more, a choice, a promise. Whatever came next, they would face it hand in hand, side by side. 1 year later, the yellow taxi was still running, but this time it bore a new name across its sides in bold, cheerful letters: Taxi of Hope. The idea had started with a single conversation between Noah and Mia, sitting on the couch of their small apartment, sipping tea and watching the city lights flicker outside their window. What if, Noah had said, we used the taxi to do more than just drive people around? What if we helped people who needed it, people like you that night? Mia had smiled, her eyes lighting up. "You mean like a lifeline?" "Exactly," Noah replied, "a way to give back, to remind people that sometimes, even in the darkest moments, there's hope." And so the Taxi of Hope was born. It became more than just transportation. It became a symbol of kindness, resilience, and second chances. People called it for rides, sure, but also for someone to listen, to share a quiet moment, or simply to feel seen. For Mia and Noah, it was their way of saying thank you, to the universe, to each other, and to the strangers whose lives they touched along the way. Noah had said, "I wish more people could feel safe just stepping into a car." And Mia had replied, "Then let's give them that." From there, the plan took root and grew. Taxi of Hope became a free service for the people most often overlooked. Elderly individuals trying to get to doctor's appointments, pregnant women needing a ride to the hospital, struggling families just needing transport they could trust. The first cab was Noah's, of course, the same one that had stopped for a girl in the rain. Then came a second, then a third, donated by those moved by their story. Mechanics volunteered to help, local shops offered discounts, and more drivers signed on, not for pay, but for purpose. Mia handled the logistics, the fundraising, the website. She refused to use her father's name to push the program. "This isn't charity," she'd say. "It's a thank you." They lived in a modest apartment on the third floor of a brownstone with creaky stairs and a stubborn heater in winter. The space was filled with plants, coffee mugs with mismatched handles, and shelves stacked with books and memories. Noah still made breakfast every morning. Mia still teased him about how he folded laundry, and every night they curled up with the kind of peace neither of them had ever known before. When it came time for their wedding, they agreed on one thing: no ballroom, no tuxedos, no golden invitations. Instead, they got married in the park where they had first shared silence. The ceremony was simple: folding chairs, a few strings of lights, and guests who had all, at one point or another, been passengers in Noah's taxi. There was Mrs. Holloway, the 82-year-old he used to drive to her eye appointments. There was Carla, the single mom who called Noah in labor when she had no one else. And there was a little girl named Ava, who once left her stuffed rabbit in the back seat, only for Noah to drive it back across town the same night. Each guest came with a story, a tear, a smile. Each one brought a flower, and together they created a bouquet that Mia carried down the aisle. Noah waited under the tree where they once watched fireworks, wearing a simple gray suit. Mia wore a white dress she had sewn parts of by hand, nothing fancy but stitched with meaning. When the vows were spoken, Noah's voice cracked. "I don't promise perfect," he said, "but I promise real." And Mia, her eyes brimming, replied, "You gave me something I never knew I needed, a reason to believe in someone again." They kissed to the sound of cheers, birdsong, and the city humming quietly around them. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low and the world turned golden, they sat together on the hood of the taxi that started it all. Mia leaned into Noah's shoulder, her hand resting gently over his heart. She looked out at the horizon and said softly, "I used to think I needed an empire. That love had to come with chandeliers and diamonds and a last name everyone respected." She paused, smiling. "But that night in the rain, I realized all I ever needed was someone brave enough to stop, someone who saw me, not who I was, but who I could be." Noah didn't say anything. He just took her hand and held it, like he never planned to let go. And so, from one rainy night and a simple act of courage, a love story was born, not in grand gestures or perfect circumstances, but in quiet kindness, shared strength, and the beauty of two hearts choosing each other against all odds. Because sometimes the greatest journeys begin not with a destination, but with a single moment of humanity when someone decides to stop. If this story moved you, made you believe in love again, or simply reminded you that compassion still exists in this world, please consider subscribing to Timeline Stories. Here, every tale is a journey to the heart. Click subscribe, and let us bring you stories that heal, inspire, and stay with you long after the final word. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes one small act of kindness can change a life forever.